when I lifted the phone to ask my son, Daniel, when his wedding was scheduled. My daughter-in-law Sophia looked straight into my eyes and, with a smile as cold as glass, said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Those words struck me like a torrent of icy water. Special people. I, who for 3 long years had paid their monthly rent of $500, bought every piece of furniture that filled their apartment, and stocked their refrigerator whenever they were broke, was apparently not a special person. I stood frozen in the living room of my own house in Portland, holding the phone as though it weighed 1,000 pounds, watching my son avoid my gaze while Sophia sank comfortably into the sofa I had purchased for them. The pale pink dress I had chosen for her wedding hung uselessly in my closet, alongside the new shoes and the illusion that I would take part in the most important day of my only child's life. I had spent $200 on that dress, imagining how proud I would look in Daniel's wedding photographs in which I would never appear. For weeks, I had planned every detail. I had saved money to give them $1,000 as a wedding gift. I had called my sister Claudia in Boston to share the joyful news. I had cleaned my entire home from top to bottom, picturing them coming over to celebrate after the ceremony. All of that crumbled in an instant with those 4 poisoned words, "Only special people." Daniel finally looked up and spoke in a tone that sounded rehearsed. "Mom." It was a small ceremony. Very intimate, just the 2 of us and the witnesses. But I knew he was lying. I had seen the photos online, Sophia's parents posing proudly beside the happy couple, her siblings raising glasses of champagne. I saw Sophia's white wedding dress, the same one I had unknowingly financed with the $800 I had given her the previous month for personal expenses. I saw everything I was never meant to see. A week later, exactly 7 days after that humiliation, Sophia called me, her voice now completely changed. Gone was the confident woman who had excluded me from her wedding. In her place was someone desperate, almost pleading. "Marianne, the rent is past due. The landlord is threatening to evict us if we don't pay this week. You forgot to make the transfer." Her voice trembled as if the world were collapsing. I was silent for several seconds, remembering all the times I had rushed to the bank to make that payment, all the times I had canceled my own plans just to ensure they had a roof over their heads. I recalled the countless evenings when I had eaten nothing but beans and rice so I could give them money for their whims. And now, after excluding me from the most important moment of their lives, they had the audacity to call as though nothing had happened. "Sophia," I said with a calmness that even startled me, "didn't I warn you that I only help special people?" The silence on the other end of the line was so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, I was not the one trembling, she was. "Marianne, I don't understand," she stammered. "We've always been special to you. You're like a second mother to me." Lies. All lies. Wrapped in that honeyed tone she only used when she wanted something. The same voice she had used to ask for money for the wedding dress, for the honeymoon, for the rings, things I had paid for, without realizing I would never witness the ceremony where they were exchanged. For years, I had tiptoed around them, weighing every word, every gesture, every gift, hoping for a single crumb of affection from my own son. I had been the perfect mother, the accommodating, silent provider who never protested, even when treated as invisible. But that phrase, "only special people," awakened something in me that had been asleep for far too long. I began calculating, in my head, how much I had spent on them during those 3 years' rent, food, gifts, emergencies, and whims. It added up to more than $20,000. $20,000 pulled from my retirement savings. From the nest egg my late husband Rick had left so I could live my remaining years in peace. And for what, to be treated like a stranger on the day of my own son's wedding. That night, after I hung up, I sat on my bed and cried. not tears of sadness, but of rage, of accumulated frustration, of years of silent humiliation. I cried for every time they made me feel my love was a burden, my presence an inconvenience. My money, the only thing of value I had to offer. I cried for the foolish mother I had been, for the woman who had erased herself in an effort to be indispensable to those who considered her disposable. When I woke up the next morning, something inside me had shifted. It wasn't merely the sting of betrayal. It was something colder, deeper. I got up and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The same weary eyes, the same wrinkles etched by decades of giving love without receiving it. But this time, there was something new, a hardness I hadn't seen before, a determination long buried under years of submission. I went to the kitchen and brewed coffee, as I had done every morning for 40 years. But this time, I didn't think of calling Daniel to ask how he had slept. He didn't check my phone, waiting for an apology that would never come. For the first time in a very long while, I was my own first concern. I sat at the same table where I had planned surprises for them, counted their bills, and wept quietly after their indifference. Now that table would bear witness to something entirely new. I took out my checkbook and bank statements and began calculating, determined to see, in precise numbers, the full scale of my own foolishness. Monthly rent, $500. Multiplied by 36 months, $18,000. Groceries and household supplies around $200 each month, $7,200. Gifts for birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries at least $3,000. Sophia's medical emergencies, $800. The car loan, they never repaid, $2,500. The air conditioner repair, $600. The living room furniture, $1,200. In total, $33,400, the exact measure of my generosity. $33,400 squandered from my husband's inheritance, from my pension, from the pennies I had saved through decades of honest work. All that money thrown away to keep two adults comfortable, two adults who couldn't even pretend to respect me. The phone rang. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. Once, I would have raced to answer, heart pounding, hoping he would finally apologize and explain it was all a misunderstanding. But this time I let it ring once, twice, 3 times until it went silent. 10 minutes later it rang again. This time it was Sophia. I ignored it. Then a message appeared, Mom, please answer. We need to talk. I deleted it without replying. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, I decided to go for a walk. I hadn't done that in months without a purpose or errand for them. Usually it was the bank for transfers, the grocery store to buy what they needed, or the pharmacy for Sophia's prescriptions. That day, I walked simply because I wanted to. I passed the park where I used to take Daniel as a child and remembered the sweet boy who once hugged me tight and told me I was the best mother in the world. When had that boy turned into a man who treated me like an ATM with feelings? When had I started confusing love with money? When had I begun to believe that I had to buy my own son's affection at the bank? The branch manager, Mr. Novak, saw me through the glass and waved. I had known him for years. He had processed every single transfer I'd made to Daniel and Sophia, watching my account shrink month after month to fill theirs. I walked straight to his office. Mr. Novak, I said, I need to cancel all the automatic transfers I've been making. He looked startled. For 3 years, those transfers have been as steady as the sunrise. Are you sure? Mrs. Keller, did something happen? His concern was genuine, more genuine than any attention my son had shown me in recent months. What happened? I replied, is that I finally opened my eyes. I want to cancel everything and learn how to protect my accounts. I don't want anyone else accessing my money. While Mr. Novak processed the cancellations. My phone vibrated nonstop. Daniel. Then Sophia. Then Daniel again. It was as if they had radar detecting that their source of income was in danger. I turned the phone off completely. Mrs. Keller. Mr. Novak said as he handed me the papers. Forgive me if this sounds intrusive, but in all these years, I've seen how generous you've been with your family. I just hope you're not being pressured into making these changes. His words moved me deeply. This man, who barely knew me beyond bank transactions, showed more genuine care for my well-being than my own son. I'm not being pressured. Mr. Novak, I said softly. On the contrary, I've finally stopped pressuring myself. When I left the bank, I felt strangely light, as if I'd left a great weight behind in that office. For the first time in years, my money was truly mine. No more obligations to people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. As I walked home, I thought about everything I had denied myself for Daniel and Sophia, the trips I never took to save for them, the friends I'd stopped seeing to be available for their emergencies, the hobbies I'd abandoned because every dollar spent on myself was one less for their needs. When I reached my house, I saw 3 cars parked out front: Daniel's, Sophia's, and another I didn't recognize. Through the window, I could see movement inside. My blood ran cold. They had keys. I had given them keys once, trusting they would someday care for me the way I had cared for them. I took a deep breath before opening the door. It was time for the first real confrontation of my new life. Inside, I found a scene I will never forget: Daniel sitting on my sofa with his head in his hands, Sophia pacing like a trapped animal, and an older man I didn't know, flipping through papers on my dining table. My papers? My personal documents. What is going on here? I asked, my voice louder than I intended. They all looked at me as if I were the intruder in my own home. Sophia spoke first, her tone frantic and theatrical. Marianne, thank God you're here. We need to talk. Mr. Crane is from the law firm we consulted about your situation. My situation. The words came out calm, almost cold. What situation? I'm perfectly fine. Daniel finally lifted his head. The eyes that had once belonged to a tender child now reflected only panic, the panic of losing his easy life. Mom, we went to the bank. They told us you canceled all the transfers. Mr. Novak said you also blocked our access to your accounts. We don't understand why. Mr. Crane, a man in his 50s, wearing a gray suit and an unconvincing smile, extended his hand. Mrs. Keller. I'm Mr. Crane, a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental health and asked me to assess the situation. I didn't take his hand. Instead, I went straight to my dining table and gathered my documents. These are my private papers. You have no right to read them without my permission. Mom! Daniel interrupted, using that condescending tone he had perfected over the years. We're just worried. Your behavior's been strange lately. First you cut us off financially. Then you stopped answering our calls. We think you might need professional help. Sophia stepped closer, her voice dripping with artificial tenderness. Marianne, sweetheart, we know you're under a lot of stress. Maybe the loneliness is getting to you. At your age, little episodes of confusion are normal. The word confusion rang in my head like an alarm bell. Now I understood why they had brought the lawyer. This wasn't about helping me. It was about declaring me mentally unfit and taking control of my finances. The same woman who had once told me I wasn't special enough to attend her wedding was now treating me like a senile old fool. I am not confused, I said, my voice firm enough to freeze the room. I'm clearer than I've been in years, and all of you are leaving my house right now. Mrs. Keller. Mr. Crane began in that polished, professional tone lawyers use when pretending to be reasonable. I understand you feel overwhelmed, but your children have every right to step in if they believe your financial judgment is impaired. They've documented several concerning behaviors. Concerning behaviors, I laughed harshly. Like what? Deciding that my money belongs to me, choosing not to finance the lives of two adults who treat me like trash. Sophia flinched as if I had slapped her. We never treated you badly, she protested. Your family. Everything you own will be ours one day. Anyway, we're just speeding up the process. There it was, the naked truth. In their minds, I was already dead. They were just cashing in their inheritance early. It didn't matter whether I had 70 years or 70 days left. To them, I was just an ATM with legs, a problematic one at that. Out? I said, pointing to the door. All of you. Out of my house. Daniel stood, his face twisted like a petulant child denied a toy. Mom, we can't just leave. We have responsibilities: rent, car payments, the credit card you co-signed. You can't just cut us off overnight. I can't. My voice rose for the first time. Who says I can't? For years, I've paid rent that wasn't even in my name. I filled a refrigerator in a home where I wasn't welcome. I funded a life that clearly had no room for me. Mr. Crane took a folder from his briefcase and placed it neatly on my table. Mrs. Keller, we've prepared some documents to make this transition smoother. A power of attorney allowing Daniel and Sophia to manage your finances more efficiently. It's only temporary, until you feel better. I picked up the folder and, without even glancing inside, threw it straight into the trash. The only transition happening here, I said coldly, is yours to the front door. Sophia began to cry, but they weren't tears of sorrow, only of frustration and repressed rage. You can't do this to us. Marianne, we depended on you. We made plans around your support. We bought things. We took on obligations because we trusted you'd be there. Obligations based on my money, I replied. Not on my happiness or my company, just on my money. And now that I've decided it's better used on my own life, suddenly, I'm the confused old woman who needs guardianship. Daniel tried to approach me, but I stepped back. He was no longer the little boy who ran to me after nightmares. He was a 35-year-old man who saw his mother as an obstacle between himself and a comfortable, effortless life. Mom, memare mistaks, he said in a voice meant to sound remorseful. The wedding was a misunderstanding. Sophia was nervous. I was under pressure. We can fix this if you'd just be reasonable again. Reasonable, I repeated, the word bitter in my mouth. You mean keep paying for your life while you treat me like a stranger? Pretend it doesn't hurt to have been excluded from the most important day of my son's life. Miss Crane began packing his papers with the efficiency of a man used to rejection. Mrs. Keller, this isn't over. Your family has legal options. If you're making irrational decisions due to mental decline, a judge can assign guardianship. His words hit like a blow. This wasn't just manipulation, it was a legal threat. They wanted to have me declared incompetent. Mr. Crane, I said, meeting his eyes. I suggest you do your homework before threatening a 71-year-old woman who's managed her finances flawlessly for 40 years, raised her son alone after her husband's death, kept her home running, worked honorably until retirement, and supported two perfectly capable adults until last week. Sophia stopped crying. Her face hardened, revealing who she truly was. This won't stay like this. Marianne, she spat. We have lawyers too. Perfect, I said. Hire as many as you want with your own money. Of course. Mine is no longer available for your legal tantrums. The three of them walked toward the door, with the offended dignity of people unaccustomed to being told no. Before leaving, Daniel turned to me one last time. "Mom, this is going to end badly for you. You'll wind up alone, with no one to care for you when you really need it." "Daniel," I answered, sadness mixing with crystalline clarity. "I'm already alone. The difference is now it's by choice, not by neglect. The difference is that now it is by my own choice, not because you neglected me." As the door clicked shut behind them, I stood in my living room, wrapped in the most beautiful silence I had heard in years, a quiet that sounded exactly like freedom. That night I did not sleep, not from grief or remorse, but from the rush of adrenaline that comes with taking back the steering wheel of your own life. I lay awake. A general mapping strategy before a campaign. If Daniel and Sophia wanted a fight, I would meet them on the field, only I would wage it with intellect rather than impulse. By 6 o'clock in the morning, I was dressed and set to move. My first destination was the law office of Miss Arjun Patel, a man I had met years earlier when I handled Rick's will. Unlike Mr. Thomas Crane, the attorney Daniel and Sophia had paraded into my dining room. Mr. Patel had a sterling reputation and specialized in safeguarding the rights of older adults. "Mrs. Keller," he said after hearing everything, "what your children attempted yesterday is far more common than you might imagine. It has a name, elder financial abuse, and it is a federal offense. The fact that they entered your home without permission and rifled through private documents is also a violation." His words both steadied and unsettled me. They steadied me because they proved I had not imagined the abuse. They unsettled me because the danger was clearly greater than I had allowed myself to admit. "We must document everything," Mr. Patel continued. "Every transfer, every gift, every text or call where they pressured you for money. We will also revise your will to shield your assets from future manipulation." We spent 3 hours combing through my records. When he totaled the figure $33,400 over 3 years, he gave a low whistle. "Mrs. Keller, this could have funded comfortable travel and a peaceful retirement. Instead, you underwrote the lives of 2 adults who did not even respect you enough to invite you to their wedding." I left Mr. Patel's office with a full plan. First, change every lock in my house. Second, install a camera-based security system to prevent surprise visits. Third, open a fresh account at a bank where they had no connections. And fourth, begin living the life I had postponed for years. My next stop was the hardware store. The owner, Mr. Raul Delgado, had known me for years because I was forever buying supplies to fix Daniel and Sophia's apartment. This time, the errand was different. "Mrs. Keller, what brings you in today?" he asked, with the familiar warmth of someone who had quietly witnessed my squandered generosity. "Another emergency for your son?" "No, Mr. Delgado. This time it's for my house. I need every lock replaced, and I want the best quality you have." He looked surprised but did not pry. While I was comparing lock sets, his son Leo, who installs security systems, stepped in. "Providence. In workboats." "Leo," I said, "I also need a full set of surveillance cameras. The complete package. Price is not the issue." While they scheduled the installation for the next day, a call arrived from an unknown number. It was Sophia, borrowing someone else's phone because I had blocked hers after yesterday's scene. "Marianne, it's Sophia. Please don't hang up. We should talk like civilized adults." "Speak," I answered, dry as dust. "Look, I get that you're upset about the wedding. Daniel and I want to make it right. What if we do a special dinner to celebrate with you at your place? We can cook together like we used to." The manipulation was so transparent I almost laughed. Sophia. How much rent do you actually owe? The silence on the line told me I had struck the nerve. 2 months? $1,000 total. But I didn't call just for that. Marianne, we really miss you. Do you miss me or my money? I asked plainly. Both, she said, startlingly candid. I won't lie. Yes, we need help, but we love you. 2. You matter to us. If I matter? I said. Why did I not matter enough to stand at your wedding? Why do I never matter enough to get a call that is not a request for cash? When was the last time you called just to ask how I am? Another silence. We both knew the answer, never. Listen carefully. Sophia, for 3 years, you treated me like an ATM with feelings. You used me, ignored me, and finally humiliated me. Now that the money is running thin, you have rediscovered love. Marianne, please. There is no please. You made your choice when you decided I was not special enough to be present. Now I am making mine. I ended the call and powered the phone off. My liberation would proceed without interruptions. That afternoon I went to the salon I had not visited in over a year, appointments always canceled because Daniel or Sophia needed something. Or because the money I earmarked for myself became their emergency. Mrs. Keller, my favorite stylist, Cynthia, called. What a surprise, I thought you'd forgotten us. I didn't forget you. Cynthia, I forgot that I, too, deserve to be cared for. I ordered the full treatment cut. Color. Manicure. Pedicure. For the first time in years, I spent money on myself without the slightest guilt. While Cynthia worked, she chatted about her kids and her hopes. It felt like fresh air to have a conversation not orbiting Daniel and Sophia's needs. You look beautiful. Mrs. Keller, she said at the end. More than that, you look free. Did something good happen, yes? Cynthia, I finally learned how to say no. When I returned home, a car I did not recognize was parked in front. My heart kicked once. Had they come back with reinforcements, but an older woman sat on my porch steps. Mrs. Keller, she asked, as I got out. That's me. Can I help you? I'm Helen Brooks. Next door. We've been neighbors for years. But we never really talked. Yesterday I heard raised voices and got worried. Are you all right? Her unforced concern moved me. A stranger cared more about my well-being than my own son. Come in. Mrs. Brooks. Let me make you coffee and tell you a story you will scarcely believe. As I brewed the pot, I told her everything. Helen listened without interrupting, nodding here and there. When I finished, her eyes shone with tears. Mrs. Keller, she said, you did the right thing. I faced something similar with my daughter 5 years ago. I thought it was my duty to bankroll her adult life. I believed she wouldn't love me if I didn't fund her. What happened? I cut off the money when I realized she only called when she needed something. The beginning was awful threats, guilt trips, emotional blackmail. But after 6 months, my daughter called to apologize for real. Now we have a relationship built on love, not cash. Her words gave me hope and confirmed I had chosen wisely. Do you think Daniel and Sophia will ever understand? Maybe yes, maybe no, she said honestly. But that is no longer your responsibility. Mrs. Keller, your responsibility is to live your life. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I went to bed without worrying about whether Daniel and Sophia had rent, groceries, or money for whims. I lay there thinking about myself, my plans, my future, and I slept better than I had in years. The next morning at 8 o'clock, Leo and Mr. Delgado arrived to change the locks and install the new system. While they worked, My phone buzzed incessantly from unknown numbers. Sophia kept trying from different lines. But I had acquired a new talent ignoring calls that did not serve me. Mrs. Keller, Leo said as he mounted the cameras. This setup will give you real peace of mind. You'll be able to see who comes to your door from your phone, even when you're away. And if anyone forces entry, the police are notified automatically. The irony was not lost on me. I was fortifying my home against my own son, but it did not wound me the way it once would have. It was simply a practical step to protect the peace I had just won. While the crew finished, I did something I had not done in years. I called my sister Claudia in Boston. We had drifted because every conversation turned into a report on Daniel and Sophia, how much I had spent. How proud I was to help. I could finally see that those updates were financial ledgers disguised as family news. Marianne Claudia answered. Surprised. Sister. How are you? We haven't talked in months. I'm good. Claudia better than good. I'm calling to say I've finally come to my senses. I told her everything. The secret wedding. The humiliation. The lawyer at my table. My decision to shut off the funds. Claudia listened quietly. When I finished, her response stunned me. Marianne. It was about time. Each call broke my heart. You'd boast about how much you gave them, as if love could be measured in dollars. I wanted to tell you something, but never found the way. What? That when I saw Daniel at family gatherings, he never spoke of you with warmth. It was always my mom helped with this, or my mom bought that. Never. I miss my mom or I love my mom. You were a service. Not a person. Her words hurt, but like a doctor cleaning a wound. The pain was part of healing. There's something else. Claudia went on. Sophia always talked about you in the future tense, when Marianne is no longer here. We can remodel her house. Or, when we inherit, we'll invest in the business. As if they were waiting for you to die so they could finally live. The revelation hit like an ice bath. I was not just an ATM, I was a temporary obstacle between them and their money. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen absorbing it all years with a husband who truly loved me, 35 years raising my son alone after Rick died, and 3 years financing 2 adults who viewed me as a $100,000 speed bump. The doorbell rang. On the new cameras, I saw Helen holding a mug. I opened the door and she handed me fresh coffee. I figured, you might want company after everything you shared yesterday, she said with that sincere smile I had already grown to appreciate. We settled in my living room, and Helen offered more from her story. My daughter said the exact lines Sophia uses on you. You're like a second mom. We're special to you. It will all be ours anyway. They are scripted phrases. Mrs. Keller learned from an invisible handbook of manipulation. Do you think such a handbook exists? I asked. Half teasing. Not officially, but everyone seems to read the same pages. Chapter 1, make her feel indispensable. Chapter 2, stage constant financial emergencies. Chapter 3, if she resists, question her mental health. We laughed. A bitter kind of humor, tragic and funny at once. Recognizing the predictable pattern in our own children. Did you ever feel guilty after cutting off the funds? I asked. Every single day for the first 3 months, she admitted. But then I saw results. My daughter took a second job. Her husband stopped golfing every weekend and started looking for extra shifts. They learned to live within their means. Most importantly, they learned I am a person, not a resource. That afternoon, I chose something I had postponed for years, visiting Rick's grave. I always found reasons not to go, some sudden crisis for Daniel or Sophia, or the taxi fare better spent on their emergencies. The cemetery was quiet and lovely. Rick's headstone looked a bit neglected. I had not been by to tidy it in months. I sat on the grass beside him and spoke as if he were still there. Rick, my love. I think I lost myself for a while. After you left, I poured everything into Daniel. I wanted to be the best mother, to fill the space you left. And somewhere along the way, I forgot to be myself. A light wind brushed my face. For a moment, I felt he was listening. Our son has become someone I do not recognize, or perhaps he always was, and I refuse to see. Sophia is exactly as you would have guessed. The money you left, so I could live peacefully, I spent it carrying them. But no more. My love, I have learned. I cleaned the stone, replaced the wilted flowers with fresh ones, and lingered another hour simply enjoying the stillness. For the first time in years, I was not racing home to solve Daniel and Sophia's problems. When I finally returned, 3 cars again lined the curb. My heart tightened, but this time I was ready. The cameras showed Daniel, Sophia, and 2 unfamiliar people, all agitated, pointing at my house and squabbling. I stayed in the car and phoned Mr. Patel. They're here again, this time with extras. What should I do? Do not get out, he said. I'm on my way, and I'm calling the police. After our meeting, I requested a temporary restraining order. They are not permitted on your property. Minutes later, Mr. Patel and 2 patrol cars rolled up. I watched officers speak with Daniel and Sophia. I saw my son gesturing wildly. I saw Sophia crying again and felt nothing. An officer approached my window. Ma'am, you can step out safely. Your visitors will be leaving now. As I got out, Daniel shouted from the street. Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son, Daniel. I replied with a calm that surprised even me. Family does not threaten guardianship petitions. Family does not enter homes without permission. Family does not treat their mother like an ATM. From across the way, Sophia screamed, You're going to pay for everything you owe us. We have bills you co-signed. You can't abandon us like this, Mr. Patel cutting crisply. Ems. Hartman. All future communication must go through my office. And I suggest you consult counsel before making collection threats. My client has complete documentation of 3 years of voluntary payments. I watched them drive off thwarted but not finished. I knew this was not over. Yet for the first time since the ordeal began, I felt grounded. I had professional counsel. I had Helen's steady friendship. Most of all, I had clarity about right and wrong. That evening, Helen invited me to dinner. I met her visiting daughter and, with my own eyes, saw what a healthy family looks like: respectful voices, genuine question, shared laughter. Not once did the daughter ask for money. I wanted that with Daniel, too. I confessed to Helen after her daughter left, Maybe you will. Someday, she said. But first, he has to learn that you are a human being worthy of respect, not merely a revenue stream. For the first time in weeks, I went to bed hopeful. The days that followed were oddly calm. The cameras showed Daniel and Sophia circling the block, sometimes creeping by, sometimes parking for a few minutes, scouting for the right moment to make their next move. Mr. Patel had instructed me to log every incident, so I kept meticulous notes with dates and times. Their persistence will help us, he had said. Each appearance after a warning strengthens our case for a permanent restraining order. On Friday morning, I was eating breakfast serenely when the bell rang. The camera displayed a sharply dressed young woman holding a folder and wearing a professional smile. I did not recognize her, but her posture screamed official business. Good morning, Mrs. Mariana Killa, she said when I opened the door. I am a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We received a report that you may be at risk, and we need to conduct a wellness check. A chill ran through me. Daniel and Sophia had escalated again. We were beyond private threats. They had pulled the government into it. "May I see your identification?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Of course. She presented an ID that looked entirely legitimate. "I'm Ems. Ana Alvarez, a social worker. May I come in and speak with you?" I stepped aside and let her in. Refusing would only have made things worse. Ems. Alvarez settled on my sofa and drew a form from her folder. "Mrs. Keller, we've been told of recent, significant changes in your financial behavior, that you cut off contact with your family, that you installed unnecessary security measures, and may be exhibiting signs of paranoia. We also received word that you declined medical and legal assistance from your loved ones. Mrs. Keller, we have received reports that your financial habits have changed dramatically, that you have cut off contact with your family, and that you have exhibited signs of paranoia by installing unnecessary security devices. We were also told that you declined medical and legal assistance from your loved ones." Each phrase had been crafted to paint me as a deranged old woman. I could hear Sophia's turn of phrase in every line. She had always been adept at twisting language to get what she wanted. "Ems. Alvarez," I said, summoning all the dignity I possessed. "I would like to call my attorney before answering any questions." "Ma'am, this is not an interrogation," she replied. "It is a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, there should be no problem speaking with me." That line, "if you have nothing to hide," infuriated me. It is the logic abusers employ to excuse their invasions if you are innocent. You should not object to having your privacy stripped away. "Miss, I am calling my lawyer. You may wait here or return another day. But I will not answer questions without legal representation present." I telephoned Mr. Patel, and within 20 minutes he arrived. When he stepped in and saw the social worker, his expression hardened. "Ems. Alvarez," he said after examining her identification. "I trust you have a court order to be here. My client is represented by counsel, and any unauthorized investigation amounts to harassment." "Sir." Ems. Alvarez replied, less certain than before. "We have reports from concerned family about the lady's safety. It is our duty to investigate." "What family, Mr. Patel asked, dry as dust. "The same family that tried to force her to sign a power of attorney without independent counsel, the same family that entered her home without permission and pawed through private papers, the same family that excluded her from major life events while living off her money, Mr. Patel placed a folder on the table. "Here is comprehensive documentation of my client's financial and emotional abuse. $33,400 drained from her accounts over 3 years. Systematic social exclusion. Repeated emotional blackmail. If anyone requires investigation, it is not my client." Ems. Alvarez reviewed the pages, her discomfort growing. It was obvious the story she had been told did not match the reality before her. "Mrs. Keller," she said at last, "can you explain why you so abruptly stopped providing financial support to your son? Because I finally realized I was being used." I answered plainly, "Because to them, I was not a mother but a bank account. Because I was exhausted from funding the lives of people who viewed me as an obstacle." "Do you not feel it is your responsibility to help your family?" she asked. The question stung. Ems. Alvarez. "My responsibility as a mother was to raise my son until he was 18, educate him, and give him the tools to become an independent adult. My son is 35 years old, married, and entirely capable of supporting himself. Financing his adult life is not my duty. It is my choice, and I have chosen not to do it anymore." Mr. Patel added, "Would you consider it normal for a 35-year-old to be unable to pay his own rent without assistance from his 71-year-old mother, Ems?" Alvarez did not answer immediately. I could see her reassessing everything. "Mrs. Keller, she asked after a pause, do you manage your finances entirely on your own? I can show you bank statements, investment records, tax payments, everything current and orderly. I live independently. As you can see, my home is maintained. I care for myself physically. I drive my own car. I have healthy relationships with neighbors. Medication. Only vitamins and an occasional aspirin. I have no medical conditions requiring prescriptions. Mr. Patel added, as part of our legal preparations, my client recently completed thorough medical evaluations. She is in excellent mental and physical health. Ms. Alvarez closed her folder. Mrs. Keller, based on our conversation and the documents I have reviewed, I see no indication that you are at risk or in need of intervention. I will close this case. After she left, Mr. Patel and I sat in silence for a few moments. Marianne, he said finally, they will continue to escalate. Daniel and Sophia are spending money they do not have to hire professionals in an attempt to have you declared incompetent. Does that mean they are desperate? It means exactly that. Next step, they can file a petition for incompetency. It is costly and difficult to win. But if they land on a sympathetic judge and a psychiatrist willing to testify for them, they could secure the appointment of a guardian. The thought chilled me. They could seize control of my money. They can attempt it, he said, but we have strong evidence of your competence and of their financial motive rather than genuine concern. That afternoon, I called Claudia to unburden my heart. After listening, she said, do you see how far they will go for money? They are risking family ties, paying lawyers and doctors, sacrificing their own reputations, all to get back into your bank account. Her words forced clarity. Daniel and Sophia had revealed who they were. There was no path back, no prospect of authentic reconciliation. I had never been a mother or a respected mother-in-law in their eyes. I had always been money on legs. The realization hurt, yet it also set me free. I no longer questioned whether I was doing the right thing. I no longer felt guilty for self-protection. They had proved that my well-being mattered less to them than my cash. That evening, Helen arrived with a surprise. She had invited her friends from the garden club to meet me. Marianne, she said. These are my friends Cynthia. You already know her from the salon. Maria, Carmen, and Dot. We had all weathered versions of the same storm. We traded stories. Maria had to set firm boundaries with a brother who constantly demanded money. Carmen cut ties with a daughter who only visited when she needed cash. Dot had to change her will when she learned her grandchildren viewed her as their retirement plan. What hurts most, I confessed, is not the money I gave away. It is realizing I never had the love I believed I had. Marianne, Dot said with the wisdom of her 80 years, true love is not for sale. If you had to pay for it, it was never real. Her words were balm for a battered soul. She was right. I had financed attention, not love. I had underwritten an illusion. Here is what I have learned. I told my new friends loneliness, surrounded by people who do not love you, is worse than being alone by yourself. At least now, when I am alone, I am in good company. We laughed gently, knowingly, and raised our glasses to hard-won wisdom. Later, after they left, I sat in my garden and thought, the stars seemed brighter, or perhaps my eyes were finally clear. For the first time in my adult life, I stood alone financially, no dependencies, no obligations to anyone but myself. Rather than fear, excitement, I could travel when I pleased, remodel my home, buy myself fine clothes, donate to causes I care about, invest in my own future instead of financing the present of the ungrateful. Freedom tasted like hope. And for the first time in years, I wanted to plan what comes next. About a month after the visit from the social worker, I believed I had finally won the war. I had settled into a lovely rhythm breakfast with the newspaper, tending the garden, lunch with Helen or one of my new friends, afternoons devoted to pursuits I had abandoned long ago. I began to paint again, something I loved before I became Daniel and Sophia's personal financier. Then, on a Thursday morning, as I painted flowers on my new easel, Mr. Patel arrived with a grave look that made my blood run cold. "Marianne, we need to talk. Daniel and Sophia have filed a formal incompetency petition in family court. They are asking that a guardian be appointed for you." The words fell like stones. I had known it was possible, but hearing it aloud made it terrifyingly real. Does that mean they can control my money? If a judge finds you unable to manage your affairs, yes, he could appoint Daniel as your guardian, giving him full authority over your finances. I sank onto the sofa, feeling the weight of the deepest betrayal of my life. My own son was trying to have me declared incompetent to seize my assets. Mr. Patel, what evidence could they possibly have? You have seen that I am completely sound. They have statements from 3 witnesses alleging erratic behavior. He said, they also submitted unpaid medical bills you supposedly ignored and medications you allegedly bought and hoarded without taking. But that is false. I have no outstanding bills and no stash of medications. I believe you, Marianne, but they have assembled documents that look convincing. They also submitted an opinion from Dr. Victor Hale, claiming you refused to cooperate with a psychiatric evaluation, which they interpret as proof of mental decline. The manipulation was diabolical. They had turned my refusal to undergo an unnecessary exam into evidence of illness, my instinct to protect myself into proof that I needed protection. Who are the 3 witnesses, Mr. Patel checked his notes. Sophia. Of course, a neighbor named Mr. Walter Hargrove, and someone claiming to be your pharmacist? Mr. Ben Phelps. Mr. Hargrove lived across the street, an irritable man who resented my friends parking near his curb. Mr. Phelps was my pharmacist, but I could not imagine why he would be against me. I need to speak with Mr. Phelps. I told Miss Patel, something is off. We went to the pharmacy that afternoon. Mr. Phelps greeted me, surprised and uneasy. Mrs. Keller. Good to see you. How are you? Mr. Phelps, I have been told you signed a statement that I behave erratically with medications. His face flushed to the color of a tomato. Mrs. Keller, your daughter-in-law came by a few weeks ago asking about your prescriptions. She said she was worried you were acting strangely. And what did you tell her? I explained you purchase only vitamins and the occasional aspirin, that you have no standing prescriptions. She insisted that this proved you were not caring for your health. Mr. Patel interjected. Mr. Phelps, did you sign anything? She brought a document stating I was confirming irregular medication purchases. I assumed it was for insurance. I did not realize it was for a lawsuit. My own pharmacist had been misled into signing something he did not fully grasp. Sophia's manipulation had no boundaries. Mr. Phelps, I said, I need a written statement explaining exactly what happened and clarifying that I have no issues with medications. Of course. Mrs. Keller, I am very sorry for the misunderstanding. After the pharmacy, we went to speak with Mr. Hargrove. He met us at the door with open hostility. What do you want, Mr. Hargrove? Mr. Patel said, I understand you signed a statement regarding my client's behavior. That's right. The woman is crazy. She's been acting odd for weeks. Could you be specific about what you observed installing cameras like we live in a war zone? Strangers coming and going, yelling at her family in the street. I realized he had taken everything out of context. The cameras were for protection. The The strangers were my new friends. The shouting was me defending my home from Daniel and Sophia's intrusions. "Mr. Hargrove," I said, "do you know why I installed cameras?" "No. And I don't care." "To protect myself from my son and daughter-in-law, who entered my house without permission and threatened me." "That is exactly what a crazy person would say." He sneered. There was no reasoning with him. His statement was a shallow snapshot, maliciously interpreted. That evening, Mr. Patel and I sat to plan the defense. "Marianne, we need our own psychiatric evaluation. I have a colleague, Dr. Naomi Chen, an expert in assessing capacity. She can officially confirm that you are fully competent. What if Daniel and Sophia have bought off the judge? What if none of this matters because they have already decided I am incompetent, Marianne? The system is not perfect, but it is not entirely corrupt. We have strong proof of your competence and clear evidence of their financial motives. We are going to fight." The next day, I met Dr. Chen. She was a woman in her 50s with kind, keen eyes. "Mrs. Keller," she said, "I will ask a series of questions and give a few tests to evaluate your capacity. Take your time and answer honestly." For 2 hours, she asked about memory, reasoning, financial understanding, emotional well-being. She administered cognitive tasks and had me solve logical and numerical problems. "Mrs. Keller," she concluded, "your results are well above average for your age. You are not merely competent. Your cognitive functioning is excellent." "Doctor, why do you think my family is doing this?" "Based on your account and the documents I reviewed, this appears to be a classic case of elder financial exploitation. Sadly, it is more common than people realize." I left feeling validated and yet sorrowful. The professional confirmation was a relief, but it also underscored that the lawsuit was real and had to be met head-on. That afternoon, Helen gathered the garden club for an emergency meeting. When I told them about the petition, outrage filled the room. "Marianne," Maria said, "we will testify for you. We have been with you these past weeks. Anyone can see you are thriving. Better than thriving." Cynthia added, "You are clearer and stronger than many women in their 40s. With her 80-year-old wisdom, clasped my hands. "My dear, what your children are attempting is nothing new. For generations, greedy children have tried to declare their parents unfit to seize their money. But you have what many victims never had: documentation, legal counsel, and friends who can stand up for you." Hope returned. I was not facing this fight alone. I had an army of strong women who had witnessed my transformation with their own eyes. "You know what saddens me most?" I said. "That Daniel and Sophia are willing to burn any chance of reconciliation for money. Even if I were inclined to forgive what has already happened, this crosses a line that cannot be uncrossed. Maybe that is for the best." Cynthia replayed, "At least now you know exactly who they are and can act accordingly." That night, for the first time since the nightmare began, I truly wept, not out of sorrow, but out of mourning. I said farewell to the son I believed I had, to the dream of a loving family, to the illusion that unconditional love would be returned. Yet something new rose in me as well, an iron resolve not to let anyone strip me of my money, my dignity, or my freedom. The war had officially begun and I was ready to fight. The hearing came 3 weeks later. I woke early, put on my best black suit, and faced the mirror with a determination I had never known. Today, not only my mental capacity would be weighed, so would my dignity, my right to live free of abuse, my value beyond a bank balance. Mr. Patel arrived at 7 o'clock to review our strategy. One last time. "Marianne, remember, the burden is on them. They must prove incapacity. We only need to demonstrate that you are not. And what if the judge is biased? Judge Gabriel Ramirez is known as fair. I researched his prior cases. He does not reflexively side with families and is committed to protecting the rights of older adults. We reached the courthouse at 9 in the morning. In the hallway, I saw Daniel in a new suit he had likely bought for the occasion. And Sophia dressed in black as if attending a funeral, perhaps. That is what it was. The funeral of our family bond. When our eyes met, Daniel looked away. Sophia held my gaze with a coldness that confirmed this was purely a business transaction for her. Their attorney was an older, polished man with the confidence of someone who had won similar cases. In his opening remarks, his tactic became clear. Depict me as a confused elder, manipulated by outsiders to alienate me from my loving family. Your Honor? He intoned. Mrs. Mary Ann Keller has demonstrated a clear decline in recent months. She has cut off all financial support to her family without a sensible explanation. She has installed security devices that are unnecessary, driven by paranoia. And she has withdrawn from her loved ones under the sway of neighbors and attorneys who are clearly exploiting her vulnerable state. 5804. Every syllable had been selected to turn my self-assertion into supposed dementia and to recast my freedom as outside manipulation. Then they called their witnesses. Sophia took the stand first, and her performance could have won a statuette. She sobbed while describing how I had utterly changed, how I had become hostile and suspicious, how I had walled myself off from the family who adored me. Your Honor, she murmured, voice shaking. Mary Ann has always been like a second mother to me. Watching her mind decline has been devastating. We only want to help her get the care she needs. Lies dressed up in persuasive tears. When Mr. Patel began the cross-examination, the seams in her story started to split. Ems. Hartman, he asked. When was the last time you phoned my client without asking for money? Sophia faltered. Well, we discussed many things. Please give a specific date. Don't remember exact dates. Is it true that you and your husband married without inviting my client? It was a very small ceremony. Is it true that when my client asked about the wedding, you told her you had invited only special people? Sophia's cheeks flushed crimson. Those words were taken out of context. And what context would justify telling your mother-in-law she is not a special person? She had no convincing answer. Daniel testified next. Seeing him swear to tell the truth while preparing to lie about my sanity was one of the most painful sights of my life. This was the child I had raised alone, the one to whom I had given everything. My mom has always been generous, he said, but lately she's been erratic and irrational. We believe others are manipulating her. When Mr. Patel questioned him, every mask slipped. Mr. Keller, how much money have you received from your mother over the last 3 years? I don't know the exact amount. Does $33,400 sound about right, maybe? She's always been generous. And how many times have you visited your mother without asking her for money? The silence roared. Is it true you and your wife entered my client's home without permission and examined her private papers? We were worried about her. Is it true you brought an attorney to push her to sign a power of attorney? We wanted to help her manage her finances. At 35 years old, do you need your 71-year-old mother to pay your rent? Daniel could not answer with any dignity. Mr. Walter Hargrove then testified about my supposed erratic conduct, but when Mr. Patel asked for specifics, he admitted he had never spoken to me and that his claims were based on surface impressions alone. Dr. Victor Hale declared that my refusal to undergo an evaluation proved mental decline. Mr. Patel, however, submitted our documentation from Dr. Naomi Chen, which demolished his conclusions. Then it was our turn. Mr. Patel first called Mr. Ben Phelps, my pharmacist, who explained how he had been misled into signing a statement that distorted my medication purchases. Dr. Chen testified to my excellent mental status and presented flawless cognitive test results. Mr. Raul Delgado, the hardware store owner, testified to my clear-headed decision-making and confirmed that canceling the automatic transfers had been entirely rational and properly executed. Helen and my friends from the garden club testified about my clarity, my renewed vitality, and my ability to maintain healthy, supportive relationships. 10206. Finally, my turn came. I rose with dignity and walked to the witness stand. Feeling the weight of 71 years' experience carved by pain, strength forged in adversity, Mr. Patel guided me through my account, allowing me to tell it whole the $33,400 spent across 3 years, the humiliation of being barred from the wedding, the relentless emotional manipulation, the invasion of my privacy, the legal threats. Mrs. Keller. Mr. Patel asked at last, "Why did you decide to stop supporting your son and daughter-in-law financially?" "Because I finally understood that what I received from them was not love," I said, loud and clear. "It was a commercial transaction disguised as family. My money was welcome. I, as a person, was not." "Do you regret your decision?" "Only that it took me so long to make it." Daniel's lawyer tried to paint me as confused during his cross-examination, but I answered every question with precision. When he insinuated that my new friendships had manipulated me, I explained that for the first time in years, I was in relationships grounded in mutual respect rather than financial interest. In his closing, Daniel's attorney clung to the claim that I was a victim of outside influence. Mr. Patel's rebuttal cut clean. "Your Honor, what we have witnessed is not an incompetent elder, but a woman who finally found the courage to free herself from years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs have produced no genuine medical evidence of incapacity, only frustration that their income source has chosen to exercise her legal and moral right to protect her assets." Judge Gabriel Ramirez retired to deliberate for 2 hours that stretched like 2 years. When he returned, his expression was solemn but unmistakable. 10421. Having reviewed all evidence, he began, "It is evident to this court that Miss Marianne Keller is fully in command of her mental faculties. Professional psychiatric evaluations confirm her cognitive competence. Her financial choices, however painful to her family, are rational and entirely within her rights." My heart hammered. Furthermore, the judge continued, "The record suggests this lawsuit is driven by financial motives rather than sincere concern for Miss Keller's well-being. The petition for guardianship is entirely denied. I had won. I had won not only the case, but my freedom, my dignity, my right to live unshackled by the abuse of those who claim to love me." Outside the courthouse, I saw Daniel and Sophia arguing with their attorney. Sophia shot me a stare of pure hatred before storming off. Daniel looked back once, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw regret, but it was far too late. That night, Helen hosted a celebration at my home with all our friends. We raised our glasses to justice, to freedom, to a sisterhood of strong women who hold one another up. Marianne Dot told me, "Today you did more than win a case. You reclaimed your life." She was right. For the first time in years, the future was entirely mine. I could travel. I could love. I could create. I could live without fear, without guilt, without manipulation. 3 months later, I sold my house and moved into a lovely apartment near the city center. I donated half my funds to organizations that protect older adults from family abuse. With the other half, I began living the life I had always wanted. I traveled across Europe, enrolled in art classes, and joined volunteer groups. I never heard from Daniel and Sophia again. Others told me they had to downsize to a smaller place and that Sophia found a job for the first time in years. Perhaps adversity would teach them what my generosity never did: the worth of honest work and independence. On some nights, looking up at the stars from my new balcony, I think of the woman I was a year ago, fearful, manipulated, convinced I needed to buy love. That woman is gone. In her place stands someone who has learned a fundamental truth. True love carries no price tag, and freedom is never too costly. My name is Marianne. I am 72 years old, and I have finally learned that the most important person I must love and protect is myself. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, your support will help me write more. And you, what would you do in my place? I would love to hear your thoughts. So please share them with me in the comments. Tell me, too, where you first heard this story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many more waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings. Until next time, M.